welcome to another edition of the Chicago 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame. Today we have a special one today, a inductee, Mike "The Rock" Consiglio. Mike, of course, just received an award that I want to read to everybody before we get going with Mike and on the career. Mike won the Frank C. Holland Award. The Holland Award is given to the individual who has demonstrated over the years his passion and love for the game, not as a player, spectator, coach, scorekeeper, planner, someone who promotes the game from a spot not always noticed. Mike, this is a pleasure, and good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
A great award to have received. And you received this on this great night, October 28th.
Fantastic. I just realized I thought I got a little bit of player notice in it. I was a player.
Yeah. No, we're gonna go over the career here. We know you've been over 900.
Yeah, 900. Yeah, 300 at 3 different parks.
Yeah, exactly. But a really good afternoon.
Thank you.
Question for you. Basically, I grew up in Norwich, so this neighborhood that you came from here was the famous Galewood area. Right. How does it start for you? Do you remember the day?
Oh, I remember exactly. My neighbor across the street's here right now.
Yeah, I want to tell our audience that Franklin Teen is
my
in
neighbor
our
across
audience.
the street. Mary Kay Schaefer Monahan lived next door.
Right.
And she was probably the best female athlete around, and maybe still all around. And then we had Bobby Rashaw was a block away.
Rashaw, yes.
And then two of my favorite players of all time, Mike Romanelli and John Eckhart, that I owe a lot to.
Oh wow, yeah,
fantastic guys.
I see it in the bio. Fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
What they did. I mean, we were playing softball every day, line ball, pitching to them, watching the Stompers play. You know, I could probably remember as of 72 ranks 5 rings for each of his boys. But the one memory I remember the most was we hung around, we lived at Sayre Park.
Yeah.
And it was the summer of 71. There was a gentleman in a street shoes, and he's doing this with the ball. So that was the day that I learned how to dunk from Bobby Lamont.
Wow.
So I actually think myself, Lenny, there's a small group of us that were doing it first.
Mike, we talk about that pretty much on every podcast that we have with the other Hall of Famers. That dumping, and this guy could dump left to right field, right?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, and a part of the game that, oh God, I would have loved to have been that type of hitter. Maybe I would have lasted till now, you know.
You know what's funny? I always tell the Bobby Lamont story because it is a good story. Now, Bobby probably the greatest hitter of all time in softball. Well, he worked at Hiawatha Park and he umpired the games. So he's umpiring a game, and a pitcher is giving him a hard time behind the plate. And so eventually the pitcher gets in the batter's box. Bobby calls a strike, and the kid turns around. That's why guys like you couldn't play the game. Had to be one of the best stories of all. He didn't know what
Hey, I'm gonna just stop just here for a second. I want you to know this. We do this every Saturday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and our great president Paul Rowan puts the time aside here, 2 p.m. to interview the Hall of Famers like you, teams that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I'm gonna hold up this book real quick. This is from the banquet from all the sponsors, and that evening. This book is fantastic. That is Paul is. I was one of the sponsors in here, and just fantastic. The stories of all the players and everything. So this is the one from the Hall of Fame. Let's go back to that career. So when do you start? Is it 71?
Well, no, I actually started in day camp. My parents sent me to Sayre Park for day camp, and so we competed against others. We competed against Ronnie Michi and the boys from Amundsen Park. I mean, a lot of guys you run into
tough parks.
Right, and then we moved into the junior leagues at Sayre and Amundsen, and ended up playing against a lot of them guys the rest of my life.
Right,
and Reese Park. I mean, that's an advantage we had. But I think my best memory is walking to the park every night, watching the older guys play.
Oh, sure, you learn
more.
So much.
Yeah, and I had an older brother, 8 years older.
Wow. And it was the mentor that you didn't even know that he was the mentor. I want to play ball like your brother or whoever was out there. You know, when before waiting for you to come, I had a great conversation, of course, Franklin Teen. another Hall of Famer that was here, and he was telling me about after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he goes, John Sayer was rafters. I mean, there were teams and everything else. Take us back to, do you remember like when now you're
Oh,
making
yeah,
this
I
progression?
remember vividly. Well, what we used to have to do, we had Sayers School and Mike Romanelli and John would make us pitch batting practice and we played line ball. Wow. So, I mean, we did that every day and then we went for a sub sandwich to break up for lunch. I didn't go to college, so I was in my mid-20s and I think I graduated the year I played, I graduated from Northwestern the year I played with the Taggers.
Oh, wow.
We, you know, back then, guys, they get married in the summer. We got married at the end of the softball season. Everything was softball.
Everything was soft.
Everything was softball.
In all the interviews that I've had, I mean, we're running from, you're running from one park to the next.
Right.
Jerseys in the trunk, jerseys in the back.
I said that about the 6:30 game, but I do, Frank is gonna expect me to say one thing. When we were younger, talk about the early years, we probably lost 65 games. Frank Lentine officiated 63 of them, both basketball and softball. We very seldom lost, but we knew we'd lose when Frank was.
Was he good as a ref?
He was very good. He was very good. We weren't gonna argue with him.
Yeah,
See, that was
exactly.
an advantage.
So when's that first thing where you start to see like, you're with a band of guys that now is gonna be a dominant thing? Do you remember that?
Yeah, when I left the Taggers and I brought Mike, Mike Stout had Harity, the Kiesel brothers. Then we had something special because Mike Caputo and Timmy Flanagan and Brian, the late great Brian Panic.
Wow.
That was the start, and then the splinter guys, Ricky Gankar. So they got good when I went to the bench. So that was the secret formula.
And what years were this? You remember?
That was it started basically back in '95, and it was a whole process because the 45s we didn't win till 01.
Wow. But the pinnacle for you, I think, too, was during the summers of I think it was 77 and 78.
Yeah.
The guys like Chiapetta, Abate,
Right.
Cozy, Artie Michaels, Billy Viverito. You remember that time?
Oh my God. What? That's the best. We get together once a month and maybe another time for breakfast. The Lou Ginks has a fond spot. I hope I can get a jersey here. I mean, the same guys. I mean, there's a lot of teams. Paul and them played with his friends. These guys were special to me. And I won't say what I'm getting them for Christmas, but that was special.
And then of course, you're 92, you go with the Taggers?
Yeah, I think it was 92.
And then when Frank, of course, Frank.
Yeah, I left Bobby Rusho, who was very upset, and I went with the Taggers, and it was a fantastic experience.
I've always wondered, because in talking to all the players, because like I said, this last 2 months that Paul has set up these meetings.
Yeah.
You find out all these stories of how things went in the progression. Where the approach, where they come up to, hey, Consiglio, come play with us next year, play so and so with it. How does that start?
Frank and I were friends, and I worked for AT&T at the time, and I had a real estate position. So Frank would call me every day. I talked to Frank, and at that time, the 45s weren't very good. We were in turmoil, and not turmoil. But we're in transition of players, getting the right players.
Right.
So I decided to leave, and it worked out very well. We lost to the semi Saturday nights to Lettuce on a bad call, of course. And I didn't pitch that game. That was another reason why we lost. Bomber pitched that game, but I can't pitch.
Bomber just didn't have it that night, you think?
No. We just didn't have it. Lettuce was a tremendous team, and it was always fun playing them.
Yeah, I mean, but you had some battles with us.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? When we start getting better with the 45s, I think one summer we came in second to them everything. Right. We weren't there with them at all.
Right.
Until 5 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
When we get Frank, Frank Bastari and like I said, Ricky and the rest of them. And then it was just,
So by 95, you start to see a big difference.
95. We were getting really good.
Right.
And I didn't know, Ricky was one of the best guys ever to back up, because I always got an opportunity to pitch. I think the year in 01 when we won it, we might have lost 25 games, and I might have lost 22 of them. Wow. We didn't lose that much. And I had a lot of, I pitched all the TV games. I pitched the first TV game.
Over here at Forest Park,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, when I guess our
Yeah, we played, I'll never.
those were the Sunday night games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the Sunday night game,
Yeah, Sunday night, and the funny, no, it was actually they filmed it on a Tuesday, because on Monday night, we played casino at Mount Prospect, and they whitewashed us, and I'm walking off the mountain, I'll never forget, because I was upset, wait till tomorrow, well, we beat them on the first TV game.
Oh, wow, you remember that?
Oh, I remember that vividly.
Yeah, cause I think Cashel and North, Paul Rowan is in our audience today.
Yeah.
Paul Cashel and North were doing
Yeah.
those games, yeah,
Yeah.
great games.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and just to watch those games on TV, that was fun to watch.
Yeah, you know,
As fast moving as they were.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It was something else. And then I noticed something on the TV camera from center field. I had a little dot. I had a full head of hair. A little dot started. Now it's really
Oh, yeah.
trouble in 30 years.
Those dots seem to follow all of
Yes.
us.
You know what they do?
Must have been the TV camera that started, maybe it was the ray of the light,
Yeah.
no, but, look at you, going back to Holland, I know we kind of jumped around.
Yeah.
What did Holland,
You know what?
I mean, especially, winning the award,
You know what? That's the only award, the only way that I would ever go in Hall of Fame. I was good enough as a player, and maybe question of a lot of guys say, why don't you try to Wall of Fame? And this was the only thing special because it was Frank
Right.
and the family. Frank was a tremendous father. There was never arguing with those brothers.
Right.
They all ran a team. It was, they didn't have winning action. It's okay, big deal. But you know what? Like I said in my auto, that every second week in the NFL playoffs, they all get together,
Sure.
and I love being around them. And
Yeah.
look at it, 2 of them flew in for the
Yeah,
dinner.
that was something.
I mean, I
just,
played only 1 year with them.
Yeah, right. You bring up a couple of guys that influenced the generation.
Yeah.
Romanelli and Eckhart. What can you tell us here? So say about and we're talking about Mike Romanelli and John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were older brothers and supporters, and they just had time for everybody.
Right.
You could learn a lot from them.
Sure.
They always.
It was always like a constructive, right? I mean, it
Oh,
was.
yeah,
like,
oh, yeah, oh,
they
yeah,
were,
and he protected us too. But, they pushed us and they helped us, and, what could you say about guys that influence your life to play a game?
A game, right? A game, where I think, and like you said, how they were
Right.
mentors, how they were constructive, and not, I've seen so many teams where it just get bottoms out because everybody becomes an individual. And
Right.
you pretty much mentioned in your bio of how these gentlemen
Oh, yeah.
work, how the gentlemen.
Yeah,
Did you ever think from those early years, coming out of Sayre Park to where you got to, Jerry? Could you ever fathom that
Well-
this was gonna happen? The progression of being on these
well,
teams.
I would only hope, and it was only because of Frank Lentine and the Nationals, because that was what we all played for. I mean, Mickey and everybody will tell you, when you're 15 years old, you want to win the ASA Nationals. It's the most important thing. And that was our goal. Back then, I don't know how many teams, there were 350 parks. They all had leagues every single day.
Sure.
There were thousands of teams. We used to play tournaments at Hanson Park in 78 and 79 every week, and there were 32 teams. I mean, it was
It's
unbelievable.
staggering to
Right.
think, and now,
There were thousands of teams
incredible.
and thousands of players.
How many nights a week were you playing?
Well, we played 5. And then we were lucky enough, Norwich had the night league. so
Yes,
we were able to
Norwich
go
had the
there.
night leagues,
That's
right.
what I always kid around. The guys today could never make a 6:30 game.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing in the world?
Yeah.
That and driving a run in third base, hitting the ground with a second, cannot be done.
To this day.
To this day,
To this
still
day.
can't be done.
Our audience
Right?
is trying to get here today, for sure.
Exactly.
And the other thing that I find amazing, and you bring this up in your bio, the thing that I find amazing is over the years, all these teams, you guys have the camaraderie with. If it was
Yeah.
us, if it was the Jinx, if it was the Splinters. You remember even players
Oh,
that you guys went up against that were just like.
Who I like
it
or
is
just
so
like?
professional. This is a
Oh, well,
professional.
you know what? I always had a soft spot for Jinx. I always enjoyed playing against them with Tommy and Mike Ham and Donaldson and the rest of them. They were a lot of fun to play with. Lettuce was always enjoyable.
Right.
The whip, you know what? The whips were always great to play because they never rubbed it in.
Right.
They played hard, They played clean and they didn't belittle anybody or anything. Well, that's why everybody always respected the Whips.
Right, because there was no,
Yeah.
I mean,
The
there's
Kelly
always,
brothers were always class. Johnny Kelleher was
Oh,
always nice to everybody.
you brought
He was
up some
always
names
a
here
great
today.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without question, you brought out some great names here today. And never to slight anybody.
Right.
Over the years, winning these tournaments, playing in these tournaments, playing against guys maybe that you played here even in the
Yeah,
audience.
everybody here.
Yeah. Anything stand out in your mind, like in the sense of, wow, I remember this tournament that we dominated, or I remember a tournament where we should have won. Are there a couple of
You know what?
tournaments that we can stay
There's
all
always
day?
one game that I probably enjoyed the most. And it was the Friday night in the Nationals with the Taggart.
What year?
That was like 92, and we were playing a team called the Doctors. And you guys all know they were a pretty good team.
Yes.
And they would be considered great now. They were a good team. With the Taggers, we're losing 10-1, about the fourth inning. And the next thing, Frank, I didn't start, Frank brought me in, and then all of a sudden we started hitting. And at the end of the game, I'll never forget, Mike Stout slid across home and he went, save, and we won the game. We came back to win and we won a few more games. Unfortunately, we didn't win the tournament, but that game stands out. I know there's a copy of that game here that I would love to get.
Look around.
But, you know, that game and then winning the championship in 01. I mean, I think I played 3 innings, but that was the goal. I wanted to win a Nationals, and I was a member of the team.
And you
that was
had
great.
that team.
And that was it.
Player mentality, right? You had
That's all that mattered.
Yeah, the team, and that's hard, I mean, to do, but you have to have that mentality. And that's the other thing that's come out of this, that when I've talked to the teams that were inducted, let's say if it was the Trojans, the Lords, you know, all those teams.
Those are good teams.
Oh, God, incredible. I mean, those stories, we could be here for hours.
Right, but like I said, the only regret I have is never winning a game that Frank officiated. I wish I would have had that accomplishment. I didn't.
I don't, is Frank still in the building? Franklin team, Frank?
Frank, would you like to address that?
Yeah, Frank, I gotta ask you a little bit, come on, just maybe stand right there so it picks you up here on the.
Frank, is it not true?
Frank,
Admit to it.
well, actually, I want you to get into the way of the camera, but this is here, you can come right behind here. This is Franklin Teen, of course, a great Hall of Famer, a great ambassador for our sport. Frank, what can you say about this, Mike, the Rock Consiglio?
You know, let me tell you something. He is the epitome of what our neighborhood stood for. And he lived across the street. And all I can remember is him always wanting to play ball. Play ball, play ball. And that's what he did. He was in that park all day long, and all of us did. I was a little older than my kids, and he set the record for my kids to do the same thing. And guess what? My kids are playing ball, playing ball, playing ball.
Yeah,
This is a real treasure.
Yeah, Frank, thank you for coming in to say that. That's fantastic. This is.
But I couldn't make him win anything. That was amazing.
No.
Let's see if basketball is here. Playing a small thing.
Great.
And he was always questioning all the time.
Great to hear that. You know what's coming out of this as I continue to just look at this bio. You bring up people like, let's say, a Franklin Teen, Paul Rowan, these people, the Caputo, Ray Toplinsky, Tom Bailick, those guys. I mean, just you talk, they all now still become the friendships,
Right.
of the sport.
And you know what? I'll tell you, there's one thing, a little thing that bothers me, and I like to say it for the people.
Well, now remember, this is a family show.
No, it is family. You know, you have a lot of people in a Hall of Fame are donating their time
Yes.
and their effort. They're not getting paid.
No.
And, you know, nowadays, you know, I'm the head librarian, I'm not the librarian, I'm a director of a library. And too many people come in every day and criticize. They don't know exactly what's going on. These people here at the Hall of Fame donate their time. The people in SSA donate their time. You know, why be critical? Step up to the plate and help. That's why I made the comment about the dinner. Everybody wants to get in the Hall of Fame, but then once they disappear, be a part of it. Come to the dinners. You know, that's what it's about. It's not gonna last. Paul's old, so how many more will you know, and Frank, he's on borrowed time. But, you
There
know,
goes my job.
the point is, the younger guys, you know, they're worried about who's watching the game on TV. Just play the game like we did. We had a lot of fun. Doesn't matter who's watching, but they are smart. Because I hear things that they don't want to play on Sunday. God bless you guys, are smart. You know, I never saw my kids growing up. Mickey didn't, and his little son played. We gave all that up. You guys are smart enough only to want to play on Saturdays, only play twice a week. God bless you.
Right, no, that's true, I mean, I remember the guys telling me they missed weddings, they missed.
Oh, it's everything.
Everything.
Right.
To play the game,
To play the
tournaments
game.
and everything else. Do you see it coming back? Do you think it can come back to the level of all of us that are here?
You know, I think the move to the suburbia kind of hurt it. The parks, kids hang, you know, everything has to be organized for them now.
Right, exactly.
You know, the Catholic Church doesn't have CYO anymore.
Yeah.
There's not many day camps, everything you gotta pay for now.
You know, somebody would have told me when somebody says sometimes, oh, what do you mean you played 16-inch? Of course,
Yeah.
from a different state, and you tell them, what's that? You know, we don't want this, I mean, we do this live from this Forest Park every Saturday, and I mean, to come and see this, the jerseys, the memories, the
Yeah.
articles. I mean, we could go around here and find, like you said, find something that's gonna take us back to that time. I mean, just, it was a controlled thing that we all did, and we stayed out of trouble doing it too.
But you know what's promising? The one promising thing is what's going on the south side at Washington Park, Garfield Park. Those guys are playing the game, and it seems more and more teams, they got the leagues.
Sure.
We do have a chance.
Right, for sure. Oh, for sure. I think it can come back. Is it a cycle? I do believe it is a cycle, and it will come back. If you, I'll ask you the craziest question.
What's that?
If you had to do it all over again, just looking at this today, you do it again? For sure.
Without a question.
And how much do you miss that 5 nights a week?
Oh, I miss it, but when you played at the age of 45, you know, and like I said, I didn't go to school right away. It took me a long time to get through school. But the friendships and all of it makes it all worth it. Have the guys in here I would have never met.
Sure.
Guys from Lettuce, the friendship I had with Mike Caputo, Ray Tops, and Brian Panic and Mike Hammond, those guys. I miss them guys, but that's what I look forward to the dinner.
Sure.
I've said it before, and I tell everybody all the time. That's
Sure.
why I go to the dinner. Plus, it's a great program.
Oh, God.
And the food is outstanding.
Right.
I brought people there from 5 different teams, and they had no idea what this thing was gonna be like. It's professional. Everything is
Yes.
perfect about it.
Just seeing it, I've not gone to one yet, and I definitely plan to block out my Italian
Yeah.
calendar with weddings for next year. But it's fantastic. It's at the brewery the last couple of nights, and of course, how it's organized by
Right.
the hall, by the board.
Right.
You look back at this thing, if you had I'm gonna give it to you quick, you can think, and I'll give you maybe 10 seconds to come.
All right.
And you come up with a roster of 18 guys that you would want for your Hall of Fame.
My team?
18 guys.
18, oh, it's easy.
No, it ain't.
Oh, God,
I thought-
it's easy.
I thought I was gonna
The
get
problem, I have 3 shortstops,
Okay.
you know?
We always get back up.
Right.
No, but
You know.
you had 18 guys to fill a team. Of course, we know 10 of them. But
And I
and nobody gets slighted.
no, I'd make all good guys. It would be Mike Kello, Ricky Gancars, and Ron Zeman at pitcher. It would be Brian Panic, it would be Mike Ellerby, it would be Frank Mastari, Davey Rule in the infield, along with Kurt Kiesel. I really enjoyed playing with Kurt. Always played hard every time. Bobby Lopez was a pleasure to play with. One season. The outfield, I could take some old guys. I wouldn't take Frank because he's too old, you know, but I would.
They can still cover the gap now. Come on.
Sure. You know what? I played with I played with a kid, Paul Frano, that never got to play major ball. And he was a tremendous outfield. But you know, all my players, everybody that we played against in them periods, it doesn't matter who you pick. They were all good. And they were all good guys. You know, we didn't have too many jerks. You know, but that's how it was. I think the one thing that might have changed, if Frank could answer, I remember going to Clarendon in the 70s. The guys hated each other. I remember seeing Eddie Schaefer yelling at somebody and these guys yelling at each other because they switched teams, right, Frank? Well, it was a little bit different, you know, and when it came late 70s and 80s.
They didn't shake hands.
Yeah, they didn't shake hands. Well, that's overrated too. I mean, you know, I agree with that one. And
I'll give you one of these.
But
yeah,
but you again,
Yeah.
like those were great rivalries.
Yeah.
Great rivalries. And you knew you were gonna be in a battle every
Right.
night.
And the Whips and the Sobies are the best two teams ever. I don't care what
Okay.
anybody says.
Yeah,
You know, you take a pool of 10,000 players, you came up with two teams. Those are the two best out of the 10 teams.
okay,
And the Whips.
okay, I don't think you're.
And the whips.
There's gonna be a lot of arguing.
No.
On that one, they were very consistent. Well, I gotta tell you, this, just listening, and you got that powerful voice.
Yeah.
And then, meaning, what you remembered from those early onset years at Sayer Park. To how
Yeah.
this became that progression again, just for yourself. And it was great to have these guys here today in the audience, because just looking at their facial expression.
Guys that I played against.
Yeah.
It's our time frame, it's our time.
Yeah,
frame.
it's
it's
our-
time,
it's our
yeah,
time frame.
Go ahead.
I just funny to we're in line, one of the a player was ahead of us and the alderman said something about, oh, the guys today can't play with the older guys. Well, the guy that was ahead of him says, oh, come on. I don't know about that. I can't judge that, but like I said, the 6:30 time they couldn't do, so that's enough for me to say.
Yeah, this thing, right?
You know,
I lived off a 6:30 game.
Right.
That's
never had a problem. You guys can't make 7:30 now.
He didn't like the lights either, though.
I was off work at 2:30, so I don't wanna wait till 9 to play.
Right.
Right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. You're gonna fall asleep by 9 o'clock.
4 hours is long enough to play.
Right, how many divorces were caused because of softball? It's gone down.
Yeah, but a lot of
Yeah,
players came on softball too.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of
Now the wives are out 5 nights a week, and I'm the one that said it, so.
Yeah,
But-
right.
Question for you. What did it mean to you? I don't know who called you and how it works, but what did it mean to you when you get the call, let's say, from a ball rolling, if you're going to the ball?
Well, you know what, when I was first alerted by Jimmy Holland last January about it. And, I'm really reluctant toward anything individually, and I had to really think about it. We live in a
In
world
the
that
sense, Michael, what do you mean, like you had to think about it?
I had to think about it because I don't believe in individual achievements, but I believe in individual achievements for everybody but me.
Okay.
But then I thought about it and how much Frank meant to me, and it's a special award,
Yes.
and then I would have agreed to it. It's just that everything's participation, everything is, everybody, it's gotta be even and
Sure.
all of that, and you know what? I won in 01 and that was enough for me.
Wow.
I achieved that goal.
Yeah. And that's something you'll never forget, correct?
No, not at all.
But again, I always bring this up too with these interviews. In any kind of Hall of Fame, I mean, whatever the sport is, or a Hall of Fame for whatever, it's meaningful, and
It is.
it's, you'll never forget that moment. You'll never forget October 28th and that moment. I gotta tell you, this was a great one here today.
Thank you.
What you showed me today, and we could have talked about, again, we really, we could have talked about games, players, but you brought up a lot of the players. If I go through this, when I do the editing on this,
Yeah.
40, 50 guys, you mentioned them today, but I gotta tell you something. What that Holland Award means, you had the passion for it, and well deserved.
Thank you.
Mike, the Rock Consiglio, I always leave it like this,
All right.
teams, you are again are part of a dominating bunch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Here,
for having me.
good job.